Hello again and welcome to Virtually There. My name is Graham. In this video, you're going to see one of our early interviews with Traveltech Scotland about our future plans for the business. So sit back, relax and enjoy it. Run the video.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Traveltech Collective, where we're talking to experts from the world of travel and tourism about how technology can support your businesses. I'm Carly from Q-Line Consulting. You've probably seen me on a few of these videos now, but if you haven't, it's really nice to meet you. If you haven't already joined the Traveltech for Scotland online community, there's going to be a link in the description of this video for you to sign up to. Check it out, it's really great. It's got lots of free resources, news, updates around the community, and also just the community in general, just people working in travel and tourism and the technology sector. So really great, helpful, useful information. In this episode, we're going to be talking about something that I'm going to hold my hands up and say I'm definitely not an expert in. I'm going to be joining you guys for this ride of learning new stuff. We're going to be talking about NFTs. For the playbook that's included alongside of this, there'll be more detail about actually how to kind of work alongside and the kind of steps you might want to take in order to get NFTs in your business. But by all means, if you haven't got that playbook already, there will be a link in the description. So feel free to go and download it. It's all for free. What a great deal. So to help me along the way, I've got Joel and Graham. They're from a company called New Frontier, and they help organizations to access and utilize the metaverse. I'm going to hand over to them so they can tell you exactly what it is that they do. But Graham, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay, if you want to say hi and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Graham Stevens and I'm one of the directors of the company. And I've been involved in blockchain research and investment within blockchain and metaverse for around 5 or 6 years. And I felt that now was the right time to start our business because we're starting to see the infrastructure and the technology really come to maturity now and become the platform that's needed in order for people to get involved with this new technology.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And Joel, over to you. What is your role?
Hi, I'm the director as well with my friend Graham. My name is Joel Anton. Co-founder as well, and I have educational background. I have a sports and science background, so I have been related of those kind of things. So I like to engage the younger demographics and everybody who wants to have a good time within the NFTs. So that's my main way to add into this company.
Excellent, thank you. I mean, I would say my kind of knowledge of NFTs and the metaverse in general, I think is solely based on kind of online sports. So I think we'll come to that kind of afterwards. But my first question to both of you is, I mean, you know, the Traveltech Collective, we are looking at tourism and travel businesses. They're not normally the places that people kind of naturally think about having a virtual experience, I guess. So what would you say to people who are saying, you know, I'm in a travel and tourism industry, maybe I have, I don't know, a mini golf, or I have a museum, or I have whatever it might be. How can I engage? What's the metaverse? What's NFTs? What are they going to do for my business?
Okay, so first of all, in terms of why the metaverse might matter in general to tourism, which I think is an important point, because as you say rightly, it's not the area that had the initial growth in this technology. When we were at the Scottish National Tourism Conference last year in Edinburgh, there was a really interesting statistic that 26% of visitors want a digital experience with some level of immersion. And when you look at where that's coming from and the differences in the generations, particularly millennials and Generation Z, and their comfort level with technology, they're primarily socializing online as well. This number seems like it's only going to grow. And so effectively, from our point of view, we see the metaverse as an extension of the internet itself, the next evolution of the internet. And the way of thinking of it really is, if the internet today is 2D, so I'm interacting with the screen right now, then the metaverse is a 3D version of the internet. So I'm going to be having experiences and visiting places online, but probably in the form of an avatar inside virtual worlds and games. And so in terms of tourism and where it fits in, the early adopters in tourism, what they're looking at doing is creating a digital layer on top of the real world. So we're not talking about somebody, for example, going fully digitally immersed in virtual reality, like you might have seen, for example, Mark Zuckerberg advertise for Meta recently, as Facebook are getting into this in a big way. They're going to be taking incremental small steps based on what they've already got and creating a digital layer on top. And as we'll talk about as we discuss more about how the technology works, that opens up a tremendous number of opportunities to explore and to create experiences, not only when a tourist is visiting, but also before a visit and also afterwards, to maintain that relationship and keep that experience going.
That's also, I mean, and that's interesting to me. And I've possibly told this story in the Traveltech Collective, another interview. So apologies if you're watching this and you're hearing this a second or third time. Prior to the pandemic, I was working with a museum over in the States, which is looking at building a virtual only museum. It's based in a university, doesn't have a physical location, but they're doing all this research work and they wanted a way to present it. And we were having a discussion around what could a virtual museum look like? You know, how is it not a website? And I think that distinction is really useful. That's what it made me think of, is my website is flat. You know, I go and I read it almost like a book, but if I want to get lost in it in a way that I would get lost in a physical museum, there has to be another dimension to that. So I think that's really helpful. I will say that I did get absolutely shouted down by the community saying there's absolutely no way people will do this. So I'm hoping a few years on we're seeing that actually it is true. You know, people do want to have virtual experiences. And in terms of then, what are my basics that I need to know? What do I need to know before I start embarking on this? Because it all sounds super exciting and I want to get involved, but like what's the technical parts here that I need to sort of get my head around, or maybe just where do I start?
Okay, so really the way to get started is people have to have a grounding in what this technology is, how it works, also to consider things like concerns that have been raised about it in the media. And in our opinion, the media hasn't done a very good job in terms of promoting the possibilities with this technology and has overplayed the concerns, one of them being, for example, environmental impact, which we can go into later. So yeah, it's important that you have a grounding in what it is, how it works, what the concerns are, and also that you get an idea and an impression from a case study as to what it's like to go from, okay, so that's what the metaverse is, all the way through to coming up with an idea as to how you're going to use this technology, to then take that idea and work out how you're going to design a solution and how that solution is going to work, not just now, but as you develop it over time, all the way through to things like, for example, how you would evaluate success when it comes to something like the metaverse with KPIs. So what we've done is designed something called the Metaverse Playbook, which is designed to give you all of these tools from the very beginning of knowledge all the way through to what actually happens when you identify a solution. What does development look like of this technology? How do you evaluate it? And also beyond that, how would you then layer on something new and additional after your initial project? So effectively what we're doing is trying to create that toolkit that explains that A to Z that people really do need to have a grounding in order to make the most of this technology.
Yes, and let me take this now because I was thinking that we are, as well, we always say to our clients, this technology, the partners we have or the blockchain that we work, we always look for the best way to get people in. And to get in, you need to think about the user experiences. So if your tourist you need to be in the shoes of your tourist. You need to think about like a tourist. So you need to make it easier. And we call it, this is easier than getting a coffee, because the technology we use is using it by the QR codes. You can get your NFTs in QR codes, which you and most of the people around the world are really, they already know how it works. So
I will say, I was really looking forward to never using a QR code ever again. And then the pandemic ruined that. So I think we can all blame the pandemic for the resurgence of the QR codes.
Yeah.
But I was not happy about it.
But you can see it in cafeterias, you can see in the cinema. So it's something that stayed. So because it's a natural interaction now, if you can see it, it's not like rocket science anymore. And that's what we want to, as business, and especially clients, your visitors, want see this like rocket science, because it's really easy. And us as providers, we need to make you understand, and especially your clients, this is not rocket science and it's simple, right, Graeme?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the great thing about it being QR codes, and I do agree, and it's actually a point, funnily enough, Carly, that I made in one of the videos, was about how we're all too used to it due to the pandemic. But what that does do is it creates, it totally reduces the barriers to entry. It creates a really easy entry point. And so if everyone knows what a QR code is and everyone knows how to scan a QR code, then from a customer facing point of view, in order for your customers to receive these tokens the first time, that's all that's needed. Beyond that, they can choose to either have the app that we use in order to store them, or they can even choose to have an email or an SMS message that sends them a link to their token. It reserves it for them, and they can choose to redeem it anytime within the following 7 days. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible.
And you said kind of about storing tokens there. What, because I think one of the ways of that kind of working, which I mean, if people play online games, they might be familiar with, but for those of you who maybe don't play online gaming, is in terms of you could store something for the future, for example. So really kind of classic example, I guess, is I'm playing a game where I am wearing armor, and I'm going to store that piece of armor for when I need it further down the line, and that is mine and I own it. And yeah, I only own it in a virtual sense, but I can sell it, I can exchange it, I can redeem it, I can do all this stuff with it. What is that like? How do you see that tokenization working in museums? Like, what are the things that people might be, I mean, not just museums, but tourist attractions in general, what might people be tokenizing? What might people be kind of storing in a virtual sense for redemption later on?
Yeah, so just to go back to what a token is basically a digital certificate that sits on the blockchain, and it represents something. That could be physical, or it could be digital. Digital, for example, a gaming skin, good example, like the suit of armor that you just gave, or something physical. It could be a digital print of an artwork. So in terms of what a museum or what an attraction could do with this, there's really 3 different layers to it. The first one is there's lots of different ways to consider how people would earn the NFT in the first place. So maybe they're simply buying it online. Maybe they have to complete certain tasks or do certain trails or adventures in order to earn it. So there's ways in which we can gamify and create stories around how you would go about earning the token in the first place. The second level is what the token is and represents itself. And that's, for example, if we take the suit of armor, that's as much to do with the artwork of the armor as it is the description and story is what that armor represents. So if we, for example, went to Battle of Bannockburn experience, which I use a lot actually in some examples in the playbook, because my niece visited that exhibition and actually really liked it because there's an interactive battle that you can do there. So let's imagine you take part in the interactive battle and you're asked to consider an area of warfare that's interesting to you, having taken part. And let's say you pick that suit of armor. Well, what we can then do is, as well as the artwork and the representation of what that armor is, so now it's not just a random suit of armor, it's a story behind it. It's a suit of armor from a battle that really happened. And there's a story behind how the armor was created and its role in warfare. But now we can enter the third level, which we call utility, which is taking that token, and because you've chosen that token, allowing you to connect that to lots of different experiences, either in the real world or in the physical world. So let's take some examples. Because I happen to have the suit of armor token, perhaps there's a battle reenactment in real life, and that token entitles me to get a discount to enter that real battle reenactment event. And it allows me to get my picture taken in the suit of armor that's on my token that I chose in the Bannockburn experience. So that's a way we could choose and put it into the physical world. In terms of the digital world, we could link that token to, say, a multimedia experience. So because you chose suit of armor, your multimedia experience that you can link to in the virtual world or in a website talks more about armor, its place in warfare, the key people who wore it, all that kind of thing. And then, of course, we could also say, well, that suit of armor could turn into a fashion wearable. So your avatar, as you are traveling through these new virtual worlds, could wear that suit of armor and have a digital representation of it so that you can wear it and show that you actually went to that place and you have one of the limited edition armor skins. And of course, what we can also do with it, as well as being a fashion wearable, is it can be linked into video games. So perhaps if you're within a game, you would have the opportunity to wear that for additional protection, let's say, in a particular adventure game. So what we can do, and this is scraping the tip of the iceberg to this, but what we can do is take the token, which in itself is an interesting new thing, and totally revolutionize what that experience can then entail. So the idea here is that we can take an experience that's happened inside an attraction in a physical building and spread it in multiple different ways into the real world with partners like the battle recreation, or into the digital world. And that for us is what makes this exciting. Those three layers, how you get it, what it represents, and then what it can do for you as a result of having it.
Yeah, and as well, if you can see, if you offer, for example, a particular special item that only can be in that area and that piece in that attraction, you are going to appeal. And if it's, for example, legendary with, I don't know, a sword with flames, a legendary of our war hero, for sure, many of the metaverse players are going to be really keen to go to your attraction because they want that limited edition item, and for sure that has value into that. So that's another layer that we can add in, because if it's too appealing, you can as well sell it. So, but that's something that we can discuss later on.
Yeah, I love the idea that I might sort of go on a sort of a virtual museum quest to sort of complete a trail or find something, and then that kind of earns me a sword or a piece of armor or a digital print or whatever it might be. And they say I like the idea as well, which I guess I'd never really, because you think of it as just a virtual experience, is, you know, you could go and have that experience in a virtual world, but that could give you a print in the gift shop. So then if I do visit site, I can redeem that token and mark it off as having been used in the same way as I would as if I purchased it. So yeah, it's about getting people to engage for a something, whatever that something might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also about making opportunities for the community to take part in shaping the attraction itself. So for example, with the Great Tapestry of Scotland, which is our case study client, what we're doing with the tokens there is a number of different things. The first thing is that there's an initial set of tokens that tell a particular story around different themes within the tapestry, but we're going to build on that. And actually the story is played out throughout the playbook. So you'll be able to, as you go through the playbook, find out how this project evolves there as well. But what we can then do is with those initial tokens, we can develop that horizontally and we can develop that vertically. So in the horizontal sense, what we're doing is adding to those tokens by asking the community to contribute their vision within those themes to how those themes will evolve within the 21st century. So now it's not tokens that you're collecting that are created by the museum. It's now a community collection that is contributed directly by the people within Scottish borders. And of course, the tapestry itself, the way it's been created is by the people as well. There's been 1,000 different people create this beautiful, amazing tapestry. And so what we're doing is trying to make sure that the digital layer represents the true values of the real attraction itself as well. And then we can also take that horizontally. And we've been talking to a number of games in our blockchain network about the idea of hidden scrolls. So each scroll represents a tapestry. And so the idea is one way we could grow this project is to have an interactive adventure where in order to complete the collection, you can use the existing app that the tapestry has now to create the collections in the museum. You can also then create interactivity with the local community. So within Galashiels itself, there's places you can collect those scrolls. And you could do that either in a Pokemon Go augmented reality style, go and find it in the real world, or literally you could team up with businesses like, for example, local cafes and say, if you happen to go there, you can scan your QR code and receive, for example, a 5% discount on a cup of coffee while you go there. And also you can then link, because the tapestry is really Scotland's story, to the actual events, the places where those events happened. So it may even be that not only do you have to go into the virtual world as part of this adventure, but there may be a final element that says, let's stick with Bannockburn as an example here, where to finish that collection, there's an encouragement to actually visit that real site. So there's lots of different ways that this can grow. And one of the things we're working on within the pilot is a research project with ScotRail as to how utilizing tickets and e-tickets to be able to distribute tokens or be able to recognize people that are taking part in these kinds of events to then be able to offer them offers to then get, for example, between Galashiels and Stirling, for example, that then adds this whole new dimension of cooperation and collaboration. So there's lots of different ways you can take this technology.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good example, because I think all of us, and I will say, I probably surprising to anybody watching this, I did not get involved in Pokemon Go, which I said before we got on this call, I lost a lot of my life to playing virtual games a long time ago, and I'm determined not to go back there. But I just didn't get into it for whatever reason. But absolutely, that understanding, I think everybody knows kind of what that blew up like in the summer of, everybody was everywhere walking around with their phone out, literally bumping into people. But it did have a massive impact for tourist attractions who could utilize it. So I know Bristol Zoo, for example, did a Pokemon Go evening where they specifically opened for people to come and they'd spent loads of time and effort on getting the Pokemon there, if you like, for want of a better phrase. And they were at, they literally had the longest queues and the longest time wait to get in that they'd ever had. It's an absolute monster success for them. I think people think of the virtual world as being quite cold and quite distant. And, what's it really going to do for my physical location? But I think Pokemon Go proved that actually that's a really unfounded fear, is that people do want physical stuff. They want to, but it gives them a way of coming together, gives them something to do when they're together, in the same way as we would do if we were going bowling or playing mini golf or whatever it might be. It's just adding an extra layer onto it. Once we're in the physical space having fun, we've kind of forgotten about the fact that it began virtually or that it has a virtual element to it.
Yeah, and this is the key thing. I mean, although we're obviously maximalist enthusiasts of this technology, we're not suggesting in any way that the virtual replaces the physical, the real world experience. We're talking about complementing it here, but there's another element to this technology that we haven't discussed yet that makes it really exciting. The real difference between Pokemon Go and a Pokemon Go-like experience now with NFTs is that because the NFT is on the blockchain and it's certified, and it passes to you as a person, you are the owner of that asset. And so this brings up lots of different opportunities economically for visitors and for attractions. So for example, in a standard gift shop, if I was to sell a t-shirt, let's say for £10, then you're going to receive £10 for that t-shirt. But if I subsequently sell that t-shirt on or give that gift to someone else, then there's no recognition of that for the museum, because that's a secondary thing that happens completely separately to the original purchase. But with an NFT, if you buy that, either a physical t-shirt that comes with a QR code to give you the tokenized certificate for it, or a avatar wearable t-shirt for £10, then first of all, when that customer buys that, you will receive a royalty within the blockchain system for the transfer of that asset. And so now, instead of that t-shirt only being valuable once, every time our visitors trade it, you receive a royalty for the fact that that transaction has happened, a percentage of the fee that it's sold for. And so this opens up tremendous opportunities for additional revenue streams in tourism, and even in unconventional circumstances, like let's say reservations and bookings. We can actually monetize the most popular rooms and tables in a restaurant or a hotel by saying, actually, in order to get these best tables, you need to reserve them as an NFT. Now, what that does, apart from anything else, it gives the visitor kudos that they stayed in that room because they've got the evidence, they've got their token, their certificate that proves they were there. But it also means that if there was a no-show, for example, there's still revenue for the business because they paid a deposit to earn the NFT. So there's lots of different utilizations of this technology that can really have an economic benefit. And of course, as a visitor as well, it allows us to have flexibility. So if we had a loyalty scheme, like for example, I have a gold card with Air France KLM, but if I'm not flying, that gold card can't do anything for the airline or for me. But what if it was an NFT? Well, if I'm not flying, I could lend that NFT using what's called a smart contract. So within the blockchain, we could permit my gold card to temporarily go to Hoel, for example. Now, Hoel would have to pay a fee in order to receive my NFT gold card and get his priority boarding, but that fee would go to you as an airline. And with Hoel having experienced, you know, the airport lounge and priority boarding and all the fun stuff that I get as a gold card member, there's potentially a much higher probability that he might join the frequent flyer club as well, because he sees that there are incentives to do it. And so we're talking about a broad spectrum here, from what you can do in a museum to what you can do for loyalty and rewards to what you can do in other areas as well. So you can see, yeah, exactly, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, just sorry. Can you just say what you just said again? Because I think we just missed you for a second.
Yeah, don't worry, don't worry. I was thinking as well, as Graham was talking about the experience, it could be the counterfeiting. So imagine that whiskey, for example, had a certification bottle. You can add the counterfeiting ad, because if you have that token and it related to a particular batch or a particular number within your production, that will be the certificate of authenticity and reducing, because there is a lot of money that the whiskey's companies lost against the counterfeiting part. But with this technology as well, because if you put that NFT, for example, in the top of the bottle, and once they open the bottle and then they scan the QR code, you know exactly when somebody start consuming your product. And that kind of metrics go beyond the supply line. So you know exactly when your product is going to be consumed. So it goes from, as we said, a simple standpoint where you can have a print of an artwork, to this kind of layer where you can see the supply chain in the real life, where you can see, especially when somebody opens up whiskey bottle, to a particular item in an experience where I can earn a legendary sword. And if it's really appealing and unique, you can sell it for a lot of money and you can pay yourself your vacations. So there is a lot of opportunities with NFTs for businesses, and this is just starting.
Yeah, I like the idea, like you say, about especially if I'm sort of a member or a person who has a specific relationship with an attraction. So whether that is a membership like Graham is Gold Card, or I bought a specific product, a limited edition bottle of whiskey, whatever it might be, is that kind of kudos that comes with that is very distinctive, but it's very difficult to share. Is that, like you say, Graham, about your Gold Card, is I want people to be able to kind of have a taste for that, because it might allow them then to become gold members themselves. So thinking about kind of the memberships of some of our tourist attractions, what a lot of people struggle with is that people will share their cards around, and there's ways around that, take a photo of somebody or whatever it might be, but actually you might want to encourage them to share that membership to some extent. So being able to have a control over that, to say at this moment it's being used by this person and only by this person, and there's a certification that goes along with that, that would make a huge difference. I could definitely see some people using that.
And it's also worth mentioning that in terms of, as Joel is saying here about the supply chain side of things, is that data is obviously really important in tourism as well. And there's lots of reasons why we need to have data insights as attractions or as tourism businesses in general. And we can do the same with blockchain. We can get key metrics off of the blockchain, so we can analyze the performance of one particular NFT, for example, over another, or one collection over another. Or as Joel says, we can also see the exact time at which something happened. Like, for example, we'd be able to look at the average time it takes for somebody to receive a token and then go on to connect it to experiences in the virtual world. And that might indicate, if that period of time is higher, that there may be a need for perhaps additional support, for example. So just in the same way as you need big data insights in general into tourism habits and preferences of visitors, we have the same concept in blockchain as well, on-chain metrics, to help get insight into what's actually going on. And part of the second phase of our pilot with Great Tapestry of Scotland is to start building those tools, so that as we start to then have, for example, NFTs for sale, and as we start integrating them with games, that they have complete sight of what's going on and the popularity of those tokens and the behavior of them on the blockchain.
And answering your question, Carly, about the control or what would you need to tailor in order to do a particular campaign, that's a really good question. And that's why you, as attraction, you need to really be careful when you are partnering with somebody, with a provider, because us, a provider, know the technology and know the boundaries, what we can do within those particular experiences or features that you want to add in. So if you don't want people to start exploiting the benefits, like I'm lending you, but I'm not going to, as an attraction, create that gold membership that I want to. In the first case, you need to start piloting and looking before you release the experience or the token. And those metrics as well, you need to do all the feedback and all of the user experience before you launch. And even when you already launch, start with you, working with you along, as the provider needs to be with you, guiding you in order to make this a successful and avoid those exploits. And if they happen, what we can do in order to improve them, or even exploit the exploits in order to make a better engagement things. Because if you think, for example, what happened with Netflix recently, here in Chile, where I am actually, they started to cut the sharing the accounts with or your family members, and many people are really annoyed with that. But if they had that thought before that that exploit could happen, maybe this is not going to be a problem. So
yeah, no,
in
I
order,
think
sorry.
no, I was going to say, interestingly, I think what's happened with the Netflix thing is, like you were saying, is that initially they wanted you to exploit that because it gave you another reason to buy, right? So I'm Netflix. I think, well, I give you this product, it's relatively affordable and seemingly has no security around it. So now you share it with lots of people. Well, now lots of people are hooked on Netflix, right? they all have their Netflix account, they're all sharing it, everyone's kind of having a great time. Is that now they say, well, now you can't share that. Well, suddenly I've got 7 or 8 people sharing one login. Now I've got 7 or 8 new customers, right? If I'm Netflix. So in terms of, I think they're being able to understand how you might exploit some of those things that seem like lack of security, but are in fact just you getting more people engaged is really interesting. And I think that's much more, you're much more able to tweak and change those processes and play around with them in a virtual world. You know, they're much more testable in a virtual environment. The minute something's out of the box in real life, it's very difficult to get it back in, right? Like it's much more difficult to say, well, I sold 20 of those t-shirts and now I want those t-shirts back. It's like, well, you know, sorry, they've gone, never to be seen again. So I think it will make an interesting case study for those that are doing it, is to see where they find those gaps in security, and maybe where those gaps are helpful to them, and maybe where those what seem like kind of downfalls. And, you know, like Graham said earlier, I think there's a lot of, we don't like it because it's new in the media, but actually a lot of the things that they call out as being kind of dangerous or unusual or uncontrollable are actually built into the model. You know, people want them to behave in that way, and if they weren't going to, they would have found a way to kind of stop it. So yeah, an interesting concept. But you did just you kind of answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because you might have more detail around that. So I'm a museum and I've decided, right, okay, great, I'm gonna sell these virtual t-shirts, whatever it might be. I'm gonna have this NFT from my collection. What would be my next logical step? Like, obviously I'm going to give you two a call because you're going to help me. But, you know, you talked about kind of the development and the testing, and what does that look like today? Like, how long would we expect from, I've got this great idea for an NFT through to launch? Like, what does that implementation look like?
Yeah, so that's a really important question, I think, because it's not just about how long it takes physically to develop it. It's also about making sure that the attraction is ready. And so that can involve things like training to make sure that staff are able to give, you know, for frontline, this is how you get the app, this is how you scan the QR code. And even also that we are preparing the customers before launch for what we're doing and why we're doing it. We did a lot of analysis. As I said, I did a lot of blockchain research before the business was started. And one of the things that has gone wrong with NFT launches is that businesses don't consider that they need to explain to the customers what the value is for them, what the benefit is for them, and why they should engage with it. And when you miss that part out and you just go ahead and say, we've got this wonderful new thing, let's go, that can have some particularly difficult consequences if customers think that the motive for this is different to what it actually is. And so when you talk about sports, for example, as you did at the beginning, and those are the key examples, we've seen some really disastrous launches in the metaverse and in blockchain in general, with football clubs, for example, who didn't do this homework, didn't prepare the fans. And the end result is the fans looked at this and thought, so basically what you're saying is you want more money from us, because they didn't understand what the benefit was, what that utility was going to do for them. And in some cases, there's even been protests, riots against these clubs doing this because the fans feel exploited. And while, you know, the average visitor is not quite as as militant perhaps as the, you know, the average football club ultra, for example, you've still got the same element that if people don't know why it's going to benefit them, it doesn't matter how interesting it is, they're less likely to do it. So I think in terms of how long it takes is it depends on your demographics. It depends on how far you're going at this stage. If it's simply, we want to get people to scan QR codes, receive tokens, but we'll handle this metaverse utility experiences bit later, then obviously the learning curve there, the resources needed to support that, and the information customers need is less, and it can be done relatively quickly. In fact, the turnaround time for us with the Great Tapestry of Scotland for our pilot was less than 3 weeks. However, if it's more extensive than that, or if your target demographic is, say, families, or in general involves Generation X and older, then there's a bigger learning curve there that has to happen. And one of the ways in which we're trying to tackle that with our pilot is we've created this concept called digital champions. And so as the target demographic for the Great Tapestry of Scotland is families and younger people, what we're actually doing is within the educational element of this, we're building a learning resource that's going to go into schools for 16 to 18-year-olds to be able to learn about what the metaverse is, what blockchain is, also very, very clearly what Great Tapestry of Scotland is doing and why, and where we're going with this. And that resource is designed to do a number of different things. First of all, effectively, by taking students in the Scottish borders through that process, we're effectively acting as a focus group. It's effectively another way of having a focus group with the target demographic to see what you make of this. And that's feedback that we can then take back into the project and adjust things based on what they liked and what they didn't like. But it's also about finding those people within that age group that go, okay, I've heard about this and I'm super excited, or actually I'm already playing blockchain games and I'd really love to get involved in this. And so what the digital champion is to take members of the local community that are either enthusiastic about this or know about this, mainly young people, and have them support the onboarding of both their peers and visitors in general. So those digital champions may visit local businesses and talk a little bit about the project and what they're doing. They may be on site in the Great Tapestry to support users, because it's important that, you know, we are not going to be inside the Great Tapestry of Scotland building forever. We're going to be remote, you know, in general. At the beginning, when we go live, we absolutely want to be front and center and be involved with them to support them. But eventually the community and the tapestry itself are going to be that first line, that user base that supports everybody else onboarding. So the digital champion is our way of coming up with a method of supporting community engagement with this new technology.
Yes, and just to summarize and add what Graham is saying, in the playbook, the second chapter is called opportunities, finding out the opportunities and the utility. And there where I can explain, there is a powerful video. The three of them are really powerful, but the second one is talk about how to make your first step realistic one. So I think, as Graham said, we need to create every opportunity for every attraction in a tailor-made way, because you know which are your most age-related visitors, or what is the next campaign you want to appeal. So it's something that we need to be on site or remotely or whatever it is, but we need to be with you in order to tailor-make your opportunities, your attraction, by listening to them and by creating those opportunities that talk to that particular visitor. So yes, there you can find a really straightforward guide that is going to help you. What are the things, what are the main questions you need to do to your metaverse provider in order to make this a successful?
That's awesome. An interesting, a kind of a parallel, because I guess I work with tourism businesses and technology all the time. So you said something quite interesting, which about, you know, when you're first approaching this, you need to think, actually, what's the benefit to the guest? And it doesn't matter what the project is or what the technology is. Any project I've seen that has really kind of failed to get off the ground is where that wasn't part of the overview. So whether that was an app or a website or a ticketing system or CRM or whatever, it was like we failed to decide what the benefit was to the person using it. We knew what the benefit was to us, but that's not relevant to anybody because nobody really, your guest isn't there for the benefit of your museum. That relationship is at its best symbiotic. I'm getting something as the museum, the guest is getting something, and the things that we share help both parties do things better. Is that if you just say, well, we're going to sell you an NFT because it makes us money, nobody is going to buy that NFT. No one's going to know what, well, great, okay, but I don't need it and I don't want it and it doesn't give me any benefit, so why would I do it? And it's an argument I see time and time again, regardless of the technology, is just forgetting why a guest would use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And more to the point, if you don't think through what the NFT is going to represent or going to do beyond give you revenue because it's, digital artwork or a token, is if you're not thinking that part through, then you're also most likely missing off the whole purpose of the utility and those experiences it's going to connect to. So although even in the pilot that we're doing now, we're not connecting to experiences, there's groundwork going on to consider as we grow this, what does that picture evolve into and what would be the most appropriate way of creating that interactivity and that utility. And so that thought has got to be there throughout the process, whether you're doing that at the beginning or further into the process.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Is there anything else? I'm going to wrap us up because I'm conscious of time. We could talk about this for the next 3 hours, I think. Is there anything else? Yeah, I know. We'll have to definitely do more of these. Is there anything else that you just think we absolutely have to get this across about NFTs or about Metaverse or about anything that we've discussed today that you think absolutely, or just to end on and before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the key message from us is, while this is still a relatively new concept, your competitors, and I'm talking to the attractions now, your competitors are already doing this. And throughout the playbook, we give case study examples from places like Barbados, Korea, United States, Australia, UK, generally in London as well. And so those are places competing for your interest. And those are people already trying to attract that 26% and growing, people who want that immersive experience that we talked about at the beginning of this interview. So I think that's our key message, is that it's not a case of if Metaverse is going and NFTs are going to be a thing. That line has been crossed in lots of different ways, in lots of different areas of tourism in other parts of the world. So it's a case of embracing this, yes, step by step, yes, with clear consideration for your clients and for how it's going to reflect your brand as a company and your attraction as an experience. But ultimately, the world is taking this step, and we're here to support you take that step with the rest of the world and make Scotland one of the pioneers in terms of that community and that collaboration element of this. Because what we're seeing right now is lots of individual places trying things. And what we're trying to do is make sure that at all occasions, whoever we're working with, we can connect those projects and create collaborations so that, for example, if we're working with Visit Arran, which we are going to be doing as well, that there are ways in which we can connect Arran to the story in the tapestry and ways we can connect tapestry to Arran as well. So that's our message, really, is that we're here to help you step by step to make this jump into this new reality. And we're really looking forward to seeing what the Scottish tourism industry does with this technology.
Yes, and my final words about this is, when you are choosing a provider, make sure that provider is looking the first thing, listening to your target audience, to your visitors, and to you. Because you need to know as much as you can and learn as much as you can from the whole project, because mainly your staff and you are going to support the clients if they are lost. And that kind of knowledge is really powerful. And finally, you need to always think what you want is people get in love with your NFTs, with your attraction, and be like something. Look, I get this from my visit to Scotland, for example, and brag about that, and not being a hater of the technology. And the only way to do that is choosing a partner who is always looking for the best for your project or for your visitors, and making joints. So all visitors that come to Scotland, in this case, are get benefit of and pulling to go to every place that is connected. If you do though, this is going to be a success for you and all your business around.
Yeah, I think you're really right there, Harlan, in terms of, I think with technology, there's always this thought process that like, it's a race to the bottom, right? It's like, I need this technology is new. I don't know much about it. Okay, we're just going to do it the cheapest way possible or the quickest way possible, or, because we just sort of want to get it over with, it's like pulling off a bandage, right? Like I just want to get rid of it. Actually, the longevity of this benefiting your business, and it's true for any technology, is finding a partner who actually understands you. And they might still be the cheapest and the quickest or whatever, fine. But that's not going to be a great way for you to go out and find a partner, is to just try and have a race to the bottom for it. So yeah, thank you so much, both of you. It's been really, really interesting, and I've learned loads, which is really cool, because I don't get to talk about technology that I have absolutely no kind of hook into it most of the time. So this has been really nice. For those of you who are joining us and who are still with us on our journey, don't forget that playbook that goes along with this video is going to be available through the Traveltech for Scotland community pages. There is the link in the description of this video, so you can grab your own copy. But I think you'll all agree that we've had a really interesting discussion, and hopefully we'll see lots of NFTs in the future of our attractions. So thank you both, and speak soon.
Thanks, Carly.
Thanks, bye.